Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's presentation. I'm glad you're here. Today, we're going to explore a topic that many men wonder about: how to tell if a woman has been with many men. The title of our talk is How to Know If She's Been with Many Men, What Most Men Don't Notice. We'll look at the common claims made by videos and social media and what science actually says about this. Over the next few slides, I'll explain why these signals are unreliable, what patterns people tend to use, and most importantly, what you can do instead, focusing on honest communication and respecting sexual health. So let's dive in and see what the real story is behind these so-called signs. Now, let's take a closer look at what these videos often claim and why those claims tend to feel so persuasive. They usually highlight aspects like sexual confidence or technique, suggesting that the person appears experienced in bed. You might notice casual language about sex, with phrases like, "it's no big deal," which can make the viewer think that the person is comfortable and confident. They also often show comfort with one-night stands, which can be a lifestyle cue, especially when linked to dating apps. Then there's body language, someone initiating or responding smoothly to physical contact, which signals ease and confidence. Knowledge of sex culture is another common element, using specific vocabulary, references, or slang that seems to indicate familiarity. Physical cues like clothing choices, tattoos, or a sexualized presentation also play a role. All these cues, verbal, body language, appearance, are surface signals that people use to make quick judgments. And here's the key point: humans are pattern seekers. We tend to use these surface cues to infer traits we can't directly see, like experience or confidence. These heuristics help us make fast social decisions, which is useful, but they also lead to biases and stereotypes. We might wrongly assume inner qualities based solely on outer signs, which can be misleading. So, while these claims can seem convincing, it's important to remember that they're often based on surface cues and heuristics that don't tell the full story. Now, let's look at what the research actually tells us about these social cues. First, when it comes to sexual history as a social cue, yes, people do consider someone's sexual past. But it's not just about counting the number of partners. People also pay attention to when those encounters happened and the context around them. Recent studies show that whether sexual activity was recent or in the distant past influences how someone judges relationship risk and commitment. This adds a layer of complexity, making simple rules like more partners equals higher risk much less accurate. It's important to recognize that these judgments are nuanced, not straightforward. Next, we have the issue of imperfect self-reports. Large surveys and research into how people report their past partners reveal a lot of inconsistency. People's reports can vary depending on social desirability, meaning they might underreport or overreport to look better, and recall errors, where they simply forget details. So, even what someone tells you about their sexual history can be noisy or unreliable. This means that relying solely on self-reported data isn't foolproof. Finally, we see that surface cues like attractiveness are also unreliable. Experimental studies show that people often guess someone's health or risk based on looks, but these guesses are often way off. Looks can't accurately predict infection risk or the number of past partners, and making health or moral judgments based on appearance is scientifically weak and risky. So the bottom line is that while people's impressions are real and can be predictable to some extent, they are not precise indicators of someone's actual sexual history or current health. Relying on these surface judgments can lead to mistakes and unfair assessments. It's crucial to remember that appearances and superficial cues don't tell the full story. Let's talk about some psychological reasons why we often misread these signs. First, there's the idea that correlation does not equal causation. For example, a woman who speaks confidently about sex might be perceived as sexually experienced, but she could just be sex-positive, well-educated about sexuality, or simply comfortable with modern dating culture. It's important to remember that just because two things happen together doesn't mean one causes the other. Next, we have selection and survivorship bias. We tend to notice and remember the dramatic mismatches, like thinking someone is one way and then being surprised when they're not, while forgetting all the times our initial assumptions or heuristics worked just fine. This skewed perception can make us overly focused on the rare surprises. Then there's the impact of cultural double standards. Society still treats male and female sexuality differently, and because of that, we often project those norms onto our judgments. This can lead to unfair assessments based on gender stereotypes rather than individual realities. Finally, motivated perception plays a big role. If we're anxious or insecure about a partner's past, we might be overanalyzing ambiguous cues, interpreting neutral or vague signals as confirmation of our fears. All of these factors show how our biases and perceptions can cloud our understanding and lead us astray. Let's talk about some practical advice for navigating ethics and safety in dating, rather than just guessing or making assumptions. First, don't use body count as a moral filter. A person's number of past partners doesn't tell us about their current character, fidelity, or worth. Instead, focus on their actions now. This perspective is supported by sexual health and counseling experts who emphasize the importance of present behavior over past numbers. Next, when it comes to health concerns, always use tests and facts. Public health guidance recommends taking a sexual history when it's relevant and offering testing. Asking questions and getting tested are essential tools for making informed health decisions. So, if you're thinking about becoming sexually active, get tested yourself and encourage your partner to do the same. The CDC supports this approach for safer, more responsible intimacy. When starting the conversation, use practical phrases that show care and neutrality. For example, you might say, "I care about both our health. I recently tested and would like us to get tested together before we have sex." Or, "I'm careful about STIs and protection. Are you comfortable talking about testing and birth control?" These kinds of statements help reduce shame and promote honest disclosure, creating a space of trust and openness. Now, it's also crucial to watch for behaviors that truly matter. Red flags aren't about how many partners someone has had, but about their actions, like refusing to use protection when asked, repeated dishonesty, aggression, manipulation, or disrespecting boundaries. These behaviors are much more predictive of relationship risk than past partner count. Finally, if you're seeking emotional reassurance, ask for it directly. Instead of trying to infer someone's history from their clothes or language, simply express what you need. For instance, you could say, "I'd like to know more about your past relationships to understand what you want," which is a calm, honest way to foster transparency. Remember, clear and direct communication is often the most effective approach to building trust and understanding. Let's discuss a practical checklist for what a thoughtful, responsible partner does. First, it's important to get tested before sex if either of you has an unknown status, following CDC guidance. This helps both of you stay safe and informed. When talking about past partners, use clear, non-shamming language. You might start by sharing your own history to create a comfortable, open environment. Remember, treat any disclosed history confidentially and without judgment. Use that information to make shared safety choices, not to judge or punish. And finally, focus on evaluating present behavior, such as respect, consent, and honesty, rather than past partner counts. This approach keeps the conversation healthy and centered on the here and now. All these steps help create a foundation of trust and responsibility, which is key to a healthy relationship. So, here we are at the final verdict. Videos that promise quick visual or verbal shortcuts to someone's sexual history really tap into genuine fears and mental shortcuts we all use. But the key point is that those shortcuts are actually quite unreliable and can even be ethically problematic. Science shows us that people judge sexual history based on timing and context, but those impressions and self-reports are often noisy and inaccurate. Public health guidance emphasizes that when we're uncertain, the best approach is open, honest, non-judgmental communication and getting tested. If safety, respect, and compatibility matter to you, then instead of trying to sleuth or piece everything together, it's much better to have a straightforward, honest conversation. And pair that with a plan to get tested. Not only is this approach more accurate, but it's also far kinder and more respectful. So remember, transparency and testing are your most reliable tools in building trust and ensuring health.